Good morning and welcome to Kelly's Anesthesia Tips. Today I want to talk about a meeting that I just came back from attending and how it doesn't matter how long you've been in this industry, you can never know all there is to know. At least that's what I think. So I had not heard of this organization, the Association of Anesthesia Clinical Directors, until Dr. Schulte out of Nebraska reached out and asked me to speak at their meeting. Well, before I speak at meetings, I actually like to check and make sure they are legitimate anesthesia meetings. And it was an excellent meeting. So I'm going to share a little bit with you about the meeting and give an opportunity to everyone who's watching to win or get this t-shirt. Let me see if I can hold it up. I posted it on social media. So if you are watching this, let's see if it holds up to where you can see it. I'm trying. There you go. So if you're watching it and you'd like to win it for one of your anesthesia groups or yourself, it doesn't matter to me. It's just something that I'm going to do as a giveaway. Send a comment in, and everyone who does, I'll just randomly pull a name and send this to you for yourself or your doctor. So what I did is talked about one of the things that I think is so important for anesthesiologists to understand, because they're on the clinical side and they are busy doing the work that needs to be done with the patients. But there are so many things that they have to know or that they sign off on knowing that it's almost impossible for them to know. So we are tasked as their billing staff, office staff, however your situation is, with doing this on their behalf, knowing that we're trying to help them do the right thing as far as coding, billing, and compliance. So I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but I'm just going to show you that I like to talk to them about, let me get through here, how what they do in the OR becomes a claim, and then make sure that they understand both the charge side and the payment side. And this is pretty well known about the disparity between Medicare and commercial payers, but I like to make sure that they have their resources for them. So I was able to share, and I will also just kind of plug on this front end here, that because this was a discussion for the clinical directors, and I'll share the agenda with you shortly, I was able to kind of reiterate and back up a few things that were discussed during these sessions. So one of them was the not OR, the out of OR NORA cases, and just making sure that if you have those out of OR cases, that you have a mechanism of balancing those, making sure that none of those get dropped. And one of the questions a physician asked, which was a good question, is if the EPIC record doesn't close, how do you make sure that the right person closes the record? And they happen to be in a teaching facility, and in that circumstance, the teaching facility has to bill under the name of the provider or the physician who started the case. So I said, start with that person. If you're in a non-teaching facility, it could be any one of the physicians who were involved with that case. I also had the opportunity to plug the TIVA issue that we have as coders and billers, where they don't really tell you whether it's a MAC or a general, but because we need those modifiers, we need them to tell us which it is. We have no way of determining whether the patient lost consciousness or not, and we depend on them for that. They also had some great information presented on documenting your surgical delays or any types of delays. They're aware of that. And great questions on blocks and anesthesia time. So it was, to me, I learned, I was able to help educate, give resources, etc. So it was a great meeting. Now let me share some of this other things that I have. So here's the agenda. It was called Social Circuitry Wiring the O-Organization, and it was held at the beautiful West End Tampa Waterside. Now I say I didn't know about this as long as I've been in the field. But what I learned is that this meeting has been around for a while. And it's one of the favorite meetings for many of the physicians who go there. And they were not just anesthesiologists. There was pediatric surgeon, there was a general surgeon, there were students, there were COOs, there were CEOs, there were admins there. I saw Sapa, hello, I haven't seen her in a very long time, but in the Tampa area, it was probably very convenient for this. So here I'm just going to run it through. I'll give you the link. It's on my website, but it was jointly provided by the ASA and the AACD. They do have a new logo. It's on the t-shirt and all of my stuff. But going through this, you'll see that they had such good information about, you know, more on the clinical side, but we always need this open communication. So as I said, I'll give these links. I'm not going to go down the whole thing. If you're interested, you certainly can. What I do like to say is that I put on my website, I'm going to go over here. I just moved it because it was under speaking engagements, but I moved it to past speaking engagements. And then I have the ones that I know. These are coding and billing. But the reason I put that on this page is because I was speaking there and didn't know about the meeting. And I try to make sure that there are avenues for everyone to have information. So it's now under the past speaking engagements, and I like to point this out. I've done it before, I'll do it again. Here was the meeting, this is how you get there. If the link doesn't still work, just pick it up, copy it, and paste it. That's what I did. And you may have noticed that the meetings that we have to go through have dwindled over the years. If you just scroll down there, that's on the coding and billing side. So there wasn't a lot of coding and billing, but definitely room for having the ear of the people who it's important because they are the documenters of services. So I leave these open until I actually do my links on the YouTube. So here I go, anesthesia related meetings. And I don't typically put these IARS or state meetings, CSA, things like that, although I share on the posting of social media. I'll forward those. ASRA, there's one coming up in Orlando. These are more physician. AANA, the nurse meeting, where those are just as important. Again, these are wonderful ways to have that open communication. One of the things that I learned several things, was that there is no multidisciplinary meeting for the members of the OR team. And what was so interesting is that some of the sessions were talking about, I wrote it down because I'd not heard of it before. It was called resilience engineering. And that speaks to how the layout of the OR actually is conducive to having a good work day. You know, if you're not tripping over wires or if the lighting's off, things like that. It was, as I said, incredibly interesting. I did learn a lot. And I even learned, with my medical terminology background, I always think I can try to break things down, but I was so stuck on this one. It was in one of the slides, presbycusis, that I just jotted it down to look up the terminology later. I equated this with Presbyterian, don't ask me why. But the origins of this is old in hearing. So age-related hearing loss I can definitely relate to. All right, that was an aside, but still something that I learned. So here was the other place that I know that you can find events for your physicians. And the wonderful thing about this, I did not see the AACD meeting on here, but I believe, if it's in conjunction with the ASA, it probably should have been here. That would have been a great place to find it. But you can go to these calendar of events and break it down to where you're looking to go for a good meeting. These may be clinical, but heck, I happen to think that anytime you can get your physicians to take you to a meeting, that it opens up an entire world of communication for both sides. So I went with several of my doctors to the ASA annual meeting out in San Francisco. I went with one of my doctors. I went to an Orlando advance meeting before they were even called advance. That was my first introduction to these national meetings, and it was 95, 96, somewhere around that time frame. But excellent. As I said, it gives you a chance to appreciate each other as well, not just communicate, but appreciate. So here's all of the places. I'm scrolling down and thinking, gosh, if I could talk somebody and take me to Hawaii, that would be great. But anyway, I'll put all these links on the website. As I said, anything that I know about, I will have in 2 places on my website. These are more coding and billing, but now I've given you those resources for your physicians as well. So here on the speaking engagements, you can tell that our next meeting coming up is in Orlando. It's the AIA-BPM. Another excellent meeting. The agenda is available. I'll be speaking there. I'm already working on those slides. We like to make sure their information is as up to date as possible, so it's usually close to the deadline when we turn in the information for these meetings. So hope to see you there. And you know, I like to end with my favorite, because I truly mean this. We have to be kind to one another, and I hope that you are generous with your knowledge as well. And I added support anesthesia meetings because without the attendees, the speakers, the organizers, and the vendors, it would be very difficult to continue doing these types of meetings. Thank you all, and I will see you next time.